Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some massive news for the Nebraska Cornhuskers fans on the 2024 high school recruiting trail as five-star offensive tackle. The number one tackle in this 2024 class is set to make a third visit to Nebraska on an official September 16th for the Northern Illinois game. And for Nebraska fans, I think this is absolutely massive news. You kind of knew Nebraska was in on this recruitment, but it always seemed like they were probably on the outside looking in, right? Really high on Oregon, Ohio State, Texas. For Brandon Baker, who's already been on campus to Nebraska 2 times already, to want to go back for an official visit in the fall, I think that tells you a lot about what he thinks of this program, how interested he is in this program. And I don't think there's a better guy to get on an official visit during a game day in Lincoln in the fall than I do like Brandon Baker. Now, before we break down Brandon Baker and then talk about what this Nebraska class could look like, just want to say thank you to you guys. You know I've had a blast talking Nebraska football. The support that you guys have shown in the comment section really does mean a lot. So if you enjoy the updates, you enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. It's no secret the fellas are very high on where this program is going under Matt Rhule, and I think this is just another example of what Matt Rhule is doing at Nebraska. I mean, you already thought you had the crown jewel of your class and Carter Nelson committed. I mean, make room for another crown jewel in Brandon Baker. And Matt Rhule, during a lot of the press conference, and I've already told you guys, I try to listen to everything Matt Rhule says at his pressers. One of the things Matt Rhule has focused on is he wants Nebraska to be back to that program that is feared across the country. And I think that starts on the offensive line. And you're seeing Matt Rhule put a massive emphasis on getting some of that talent in the trenches. Brandon Baker, the best offensive tackle in this 2024 cycle, would go a long way in kind of making that happen. Now, I want to talk about this visit and what this could look like for Nebraska. And this is a little bit of drinking the Kool-Aid here, but this is a realistic scenario that we're looking at. Nebraska goes on the road and beats Minnesota. Then they go on the road and beat Colorado. They have a ton of buzz around this program. They're 2-0. The fan base, they're always in it. Your fan base, I mean, one thing I love about Nebraska is their fan base, whether it's win, whether it's lose, they're always showing up. They're always filling the seats. But imagine the optimism. Saturday, September 16th, night game under the lights in Lincoln, Nebraska, and you have five-star Brandon Baker on campus along with a lot of other commits. I'm sure guys like Carter Nelson and Daniel Kalen will make the trip for this. I really like how Nebraska has situated themselves into this recruitment. And we've said this a lot. If Nebraska can start winning some games in 2023, and there's no coach I trust more to start winning games than Matt Rhule, you really might see this recruiting kind of take a step in the right direction. And having Brandon Baker there for a night game in Lincoln, I've told you guys, I've been to a night game in Lincoln, Nebraska when y'all played Michigan. One of the best experiences. I've been to Penn State. I've been to Columbus. One of the best experiences I've ever experienced in college football. A night game in Lincoln, whether this team is good or whether this team is bad, it is always exciting. Now, if this team is 2-0, there's a lot of national buzz around Nebraska and what Matt Rhule is doing. Man, you could see this really trending in Nebraska's way. And just because, I mean, off the pure fact that this will be his third visit to Nebraska, he is showing he is clearly interested in this program. And what you want to see here for Nebraska, and getting back and circling back to what Matt Rhule has talked about. He wants this program to be feared again in college football. You take a look at what he's doing in the trenches. You have Brandon Baker, who is, I mean, all of a sudden, seemingly really, really interested in Nebraska. Let's take a look at another top offensive tackle in Grant Brix, who you're seeing a lot of buzz for Matt Rhule and the Nebraska Cornhuskers in this one. This is giving Nebraska an opportunity to land 2 of the top offensive tackles in this 2024 class. And quite frankly, that is a position that has just underperformed. It really hasn't been what Nebraska needs up front. And you go back to getting back Nebraska football. It starts up front. It starts with having a dominant offensive line. Grabbing a guy like Grant Brix, grabbing a guy like Brandon Baker will pay massive dividends in kind of jump-starting Matt Rhule's tenure. Right? We always talk about the first recruiting class, the first full recruiting class that Matt Rhule signs, which will be in 2024, is often the biggest indicator of how this tenure is going to go. And it already is off to a phenomenal start, right? Daniel Kaling, Carter Nelson, Roger Gradney. It's a really, really good group. It has a chance to be an elite group if Nebraska can land one or both of Grant Brix and Brandon Baker. And you take a look at this Nebraska class right now, top 20 class in the country, kind of fringe top 20 class. They have 24 commits. If they can land guys like Brandon Baker and Grant Brix, man, I think you have to be absolutely thrilled with where the direction is going under Matt Rhule. You are already really excited, but if they can land a guy like Brandon Baker, who all of a sudden, again, I think has a really good shot at winding up in Lincoln, you have to be extremely excited about Nebraska getting back some massive news on the recruiting front for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Again, appreciate you guys riding with the boys. If you do enjoy the content, you enjoy the Nebraska talk, consider subscribing to the channel. One of the teams I love talking about most. Appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to you guys later.